a lot of talk about representation and visibility and inclusiveness. I just wonder what your take on this is. Is it something that's just kind of it's embedded in the STEAM mission, and if so, how does that play out? How do you encourage everyone to sort of see themselves as part of that world?
I mean, it helps, like I was saying earlier, it helps me coming from a different fields. So yeah, coming out of arts and drama and history, those kind of areas, and then coming to STEM, and we need that kind of diverse backgrounds. That's just in many other ways I fit into the the kind of standard STEM box, but that kind of personal background, etc., means that I'm not going to just do the hard science and hard engineering problems. And probably one good example, I do quite a lot of work around space education with students and using space themes. Partly I love that it's just kind of big picture, futuristic. It's a personal interest, etc. But for instance, when we do that, a lot of space education programs, especially STEM ones, would look at, how do we design a rover and then make it go like here, here, and here, or how do we, design a rocket to get to that Mars or get to that, that place? How do we shield for radiation? Much more traditional kind of topics. And I'd never be interested in doing those with students. To me, they're very dry, and they've been done like many, many times. So the kind of theme or project that we get students working, I get students working in these space zones, is instead of asking those kind of problems, we say to them, okay, what would humans need to be happy living away from Earth? So if we're going to actually start a colony, whether it's Moon, Mars, wherever, what are humans going to need to actually be happy living there? Because it's going to be really, really hard. All the things that you don't have. And so suddenly when we pose that problem, there's a place for everybody. Firstly, everybody gets it. Everyone gets instantly, whether you're into science or engineering or maths, whether you get that, yeah, actually that's going to be hard. And so we've had students who, they were into sport. They can decide on, what kind of sport would we need? Because a sport could help humans be happy. There's obviously exercise and teamwork. That could be a really good thing. So, with low gravity or wherever, whatever you're dealing with, that could be a great problem to solve. Or maybe you need some kind of, economy or shops. And one of my favorite ones was a student team at a primary school. And when they were designing their space base, this was for Mars actually, they built in a rainbow inside their dome. And, of course, the first thing you think this group got up, put theirs up, on the projector to explain, we do a showcase where they can explain their ideas. And of course, that goes up with a rainbow on Mars. And you can just imagine everyone in the room goes, oh, okay. That's what? Yeah. And that's your typical reaction, isn't it? No, that doesn't fit. But when they started explaining it to us, they said, no, we would actually be prepared to spend the water resources that it would take, melt the ice and, create the spray and then, the energy to shine the light on and create a rainbow. Because imagine how that would impact the people there. It's the only rainbow on Mars, or it's the only rainbow not on Earth. People would come from everywhere to see that rainbow, and suddenly we all went, that's an amazing idea. Yeah. And again, whether it's kids, they just still think differently about such things. But for me, that still kind of touches my heart now. This idea of I wish I could think that differently. Yeah. Without even realizing how on the surface how silly a rainbow on Mars would appear, but just to go no, and actually it turns out it's a wonderful idea that would be incredible to make people happy. And so again, that's just an illustration of that kind of wider. Anywhere in STEM, you can pitch those wider kind of themes. That anyone, I guess, hopefully would be broad and diverse enough to find a place for their problem solving inside of that. So that's the kind of idea that really I would encourage people to look at, and it certainly gives me hope to work at that level instead.
Yeah. How about I love the rainbow idea, by the way. I love because design thinking and stuff, part of it, isn't it? It's like the silly ideas, apparently silly ideas, are where
Yeah.
the creativity is really starting to happen. And I just want to add on just a little bit there and just ask about so I think that's something I never really thought about. It's a great idea to help encourage participation from diverse backgrounds by broadening the theme to create a space for everyone to find some way to connect. And I wonder as well whether, in terms of visibility, we see campaigns everywhere from even from NASA, from diverse backgrounds saying this is what scientists look like. Just I mean, I wonder if you bring these examples of diverse people in the field who have succeeded, just so that people, whether it's cases of neurodiversity, race, gender, can see somebody that they can relate to, um, doing that, if that's something you do.
Yeah, I mean, and of course that just that pure visual that, oh yeah, someone like me is being
Yeah.
seen to do that. I think that's, yeah, definitely a fantastic strategy. And it starts on one level, just with gender, even is the most basic level. Um, so we have at least at STEM Punks we have half our team. So there's a 50-50 as far as the gender representation goes. Beyond that, I guess you kind of do what you can. And we have started in Australia, so fairly representative of what's in Australia. But Australia has many issues and problems, as a lot of countries do. In acknowledging diversity and different ideas. But yeah, I think that's definitely a great potential strategy. In one sense, you've got to have those examples as well. And if there's not, if you're wanting to have from minorities who've never had the opportunity to get into STEM in the first place, and that's still very much the case. Where are you going to find those examples, I guess? And I would again come back to the idea of, okay, well, broaden those themes, make it so that as many of people can find their place in STEM to begin with, and then we'll start to see more of those examples,
Right.
hopefully. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting, and I think I have a more technical question, Jonathan, as when you're bringing this content, because going back to the balance, right? How are you delivering this? Who's your audience as such? Because how do you get to that audience? Is it an audience that it's already there, or are you actually pushing for some minorities to join just to discover what it is? So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of everything, really. So STEM Punks, for instance, we're a for-profit business because that's what pays our wages. And so we, obviously we'll market to the existing schools and networks. And sometimes that's because, they have a curriculum need that they have, and we can fill that. Or various other business strategies, et cetera, to develop those markets. I guess the idea, though, is that that then gives you that freedom to build on that. For instance, so there's a teacher in Ghana that I've been able to work with the last few months. I met through another organisation called Empatico. And so I mean, he runs a literacy project for girls in northern Ghana. That was very much about their reading and writing, standard literacy skills. But he's sort of broadened his understanding now, thinking, we could also add STEM literacy. So we've been able to work with him and get some gear, STEM gear and devices, etc., to him, and training, etc., to help him start to develop what would that need to look like, in his situation. So there's very much, I mean, it's baby steps, but there's very much that idea of it. Hopefully, if you can get enough happening, then you're able to support some of those things as well. It's one of our big ticket items for this year, 2021, actually, is that we're able to start getting some scholarships for students in, some of those other, I mean, we work with students in Myanmar, and Thailand, and a couple other African countries and Asian countries as well. And looking for ways, again, to use our profile, and especially we have quite a high profile in terms of industry contacts. And, many of them do have money for social equity programs. Mm-hmm. So we're really hoping that this year we'll be able to tap into that and then direct that towards scholarships to access our the courses that we have the gear. And I mean, a lot of our gear, like we very much stick to lower cost things anyway. So Microbit, not sure if you're familiar with the Microbit platform, but pretty affordable in terms of computing gear and, you know, etc. Microbit is about as affordable as you can get, and yet still really powerful and scalable for students. And we also use a platform called Merge Cubes. That's for augmented reality. I'm not sure if you've, it's not, there we go, if I hold it in the right place. So these basically, the different patterns, you map the 3D object onto, and so as you turn this, it knows what side, and so you can actually hold the solar system in your hand and rotate it, for instance. But you can also create your own content for those. So that's a really great entry level augmented reality, you know, and those again are you know, very down, sort of low cost in terms of this kind of gear. So we hope that that also helps. But beyond even just the actual physical gear, all of our online classes are built around like the simulated software. So Microbit, you can learn as much coding and skills with Microbit just purely using the online free simulator. Obviously, it's great to have the real one and be able to plug it in and see it. But you can still do pretty much all the same stuff, just purely if you have that basic internet access, I guess. And the same with the platform we use for MergeCube. You can still do the 3D building and design, etc., purely online, without needing that physical gear as well. So that, you know, that's definitely another way to help. As far as, you know, again, that's a bit more, you sort of said technical, Alejandra, or, you know, like that practical, almost practical kind of level. Yeah, there's definitely some things you can do to keep the cost down, and work in that way as well. That, yeah, and encourage other people to look at that too.
That's great. Absolutely great.
I've learned a lot. I've learned loads, and I've got a couple of new gizmos now that I want to check out, which is, you know, anytime you speak to somebody that's involved in STEAM, that you should always have that, you know. I think you should. It's great to hear as well about the scholarships, because it's, you know, it's all very well talking about, you know, broadening access in terms of, you know, thematically broad for senses, you know, to encourage inclusion and participation, but the substantive things as well. It's really nice to know that you're, you know, you're looking at that as well. I mean, especially, I mean, God, people in Myanmar right now, I'm sure that's pretty appealing, you know. So it's great to know that that's another part of it. And again, this is where industry can come in, because you know, we have to move beyond sporadic philanthropy and have, you know, how are we going to actually make real impact, rather than just kind of donating and think, you know. But this is giving somebody access, you know, helping just to get them started on their journey is hugely impactful.
And it's great because STEM Punks has spent quite a lot of time building up these industry contacts, and that's so that we can link the learning to the, you know, that real world side of things. But yeah, hopefully it turns out it's also a really good way to, you know, help connect them back via that as well. So yeah, I hope to launch that later in the year.
And through the virtual prototyping as well. I like that a lot, because you don't need that much of resources, and yet you can make it available. So, I mean, I had never thought of a 3D printing without the printing, right? But, and yet you can still do all of the programming part, the prototyping, visualize it, and that changes a lot. So I think it's a good in between when you don't have the means to actually have a full device, but at least you can have an alternative. So that I like.
Yeah, good. And this is the part where I say, if you go to the stempunks.com site, you can just click on the student classes or click on the teacher professional development classes as well, just purely to see, like, oh, they've got this 3D design and this Microbit and there's this route and this and that. Even just to see the range of stuff there, I think people would find that interesting as well.
Well, I definitely will. I'm finding, as I mentioned to you earlier, because of the pandemic, you know, and I was forced to make, you know, lots of investments of time and energy and money in lots of different technical devices and learning about all kinds of stuff. I feel like I'm no longer a late adopter. Actually, you know, I'm really getting excited about technology now, and, you know, Like
Awesome. Yeah.
I still think Shazam is incredible. You know, I mean,
Well, it is
I'm
actually.
still getting over it. So, you know, so I'm a bit behind, but I'm going to go and check out
I'd agree with that.
development
Yeah, that
stuff.
still blows me away every time.
Well, yeah, I used to have to phone record shops and try and sing the song to the guy, you know, and hope that he recognized the song. So, you know, this made a real difference to my life, you know. Oh, I don't have any more
Amazing.
questions for you, Jonathan. I don't know if Alejandra does.
I do have one, the very last one, I promise, Jonathan. So we've been talking about how all of this has been set in Australia, around you coming from a very different background and yet being included in a STEP background. And I have a question for if you might reflect on that, and you would be tomorrow given the chance to start again from scratch, but with your own movement. What would you do to make an impact, integrating your own background and going towards everything that we've basically discussed in here, to that spreadability and all of the different elements we've discussed today? How would you make that happen if it was your own thing tomorrow, maybe starting in Australia or even going wider?
Yeah, wonderful question, Alejandra. And I kind of did find myself in that exact position about 4 years ago. So not to like spend too long on it, but I was kind of on this traditional education pathway, you know, where they sort of say, you know, go and get your degree, you know, then you get your job. And, you know, so I started off as on contracts, and then I got my permanency, and I did my master's degree, and I got promoted to central office, and I was working sort of on projects there. And then I went to this other large training organization, and I was sort of on this, you know, this kind of path. Like you feel like when you're in school, you get promised that if you work hard and do all this, you know, you'll get success. But then all that fell like flat for me. And that's obviously a whole other story, but found myself in a place where I couldn't just go back into a standard school or training job. And I started asking, well, outside of that traditional, do I have the skills myself to survive even, you know, and, you know, create my own job, and can I do 3 or 4 jobs, you know, the gig economy, can I invent my own, all that kind of stuff. And then I realized how many people I knew who were consultants and who were trying to, you know, survive in a similar way, and how common that is. And then I got a chance to do some research and found out that for young people, here in Australia, it's about 1/3 of people who are unemployed or underemployed already, you know, and like 1/3 of all like young people who are in this really, really struggling boat is, I guess it really, really shocked me. And, you know, there's a whole lot of reasons, you know, behind, you know, that. Some of it is the move to the sort of fourth digital revolution and automation, et cetera, et cetera. But that really got me thinking, what are the skills that you're going to need for this digital era? So I kind of went, I guess, from training people just in how to use technology to asking that bit bigger question, I guess. So and my answer is that I did. With a few other colleagues, we founded an organization called Future We, to answer that question. Basically, you know, what are the skills we need in this kind of digital era? And, you know, there's a lot of people in education who had that same journey. Maybe they go straight from school to university to teaching, and they've never had to have gig jobs or survive like that necessarily. And yet at least 1/3 of their students probably are going to be in that, you know, leave school and go into that. So how can you teach kids? Anyway, there's all this stuff going around in my head. But basically that's what Future We was all about. And we came up with a list of 50 big picture kind of skills. And they're all the things that you would, like, there's no new inventions there. It's just, let's make a master list, basically, because it's not enough just to say, give them coding and they'll be fine. So design thinking is in there, and creativity and curiosity, and, you know, building relationships and teamwork. I think the last one that got added a couple of years ago, because it's sort of closed off that part of it, but was circular economy as a concept, as, you know, as being a key kind of concept to get your head around in that kind of digital future. So that was the first phase, just getting these 50 big picture ideas. But then that was like, okay, that's a bit too much. I'm not going to walk into a school and go, hey, here's your 50, you know. So then we went through a process of nutting that down to what we call 20 future literacies. I guess, summarizing those. There's a lot of crossover, etc. And those fall across 5 big picture categories. And then the next step was, okay, well, again, that's great, but how do you do that, like with students? And so we developed a survey, I guess, that students can use, and adults as well, to think, well, where am I up to? Like, maybe I'm really great at, which a lot of people, because it's kind of what we're trained for, we're really good at the planning and design, you know, maybe the delivery. There are a couple of the middle phases, but you know, probably terrible maybe at the initial like creative or the empathy stage, or the, you know, the storytelling and showcase stages. Like, so you can map where you're up to and then start making some decisions. And even the workshops that I ran, a lot of my space workshops around Mars were based around using this Future We framework. So if you want to check out futurewe.org, the community's on. It's kind of a community. It's a little bit on hiatus at the moment. It's been a crazy like last year for everybody. As you can understand, but yeah, the resources and links are definitely, so that's, yeah, I'm, you know, I'm really stoked to say, well, if I could, that's that's what I would do, and that's kind of what I did. We never quite, and probably a good thing, we never really nailed the business side of it, so it could be self-sustaining on its own, which again is a whole other story. But definitely, yeah, there's a community and a whole bunch of resources and stuff there around that bigger picture if you want to jump in and check that one out as well. Yeah, cool.
Well, I think it's great, and I like your if I could, well, I've already started, right?
Yeah.
So that's great. That's great. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
I probably need to start again.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's been lovely chatting and inspiring, and I've got, you know, a few things written down to check out later. I already knew about Future We. I've come across it. And
cool.
Through it, yeah, but a couple of the other things I haven't, and I'm really curious about the teacher development resources in STEM Punks as well.
Yeah, cool.
So thank you so much for all of that.
Love to keep in touch, and keep chatting, please. Yeah, ask questions, and I'll be looking forward to this Neo chat, obviously, but all the future ones as well. It's awesome. Yeah.
Sure.
Amazing. Great. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Have a lovely evening in your side.